Oh my God, you scared me.
Where are you coming from? I said, where are you coming from, woman?
But I went to see a client. I told you, Kenneth.
Are you stupid? A client by this time? Do you think I'm stupid, huh? Where is your phone? Give it to me. You crazy woman, I already told you you can't be a model. You are my wife, not some stupid model.
But I was a model before you married.
Die, stupid model.
Ah, stop, please!
Shut up! Let's see how you become a model now. Stupid woman.
Her husband almost killed her on her 24th birthday out of his foolishness and jealousy, but she came back and she fought him with everything. Her name was Christine. She had the sort of face that painters used to pray for. High cheekbones that caught shadow like carved mahogany, eyes deep and dark as river water at midnight, a mouth that rarely smiled without meaning it. When she smiled, truly smiled, grown men forgot what they had been saying. Children followed her down the street. Old women touched her arm and told her she carried a blessing she had not yet found the name for. Christine was 19 the first time she walked into Madame Ife's boutique in the crowded heart of the city and laid a dress on the counter, a dress she had sewn herself from leftover fabric she had bought for 200 naira at the market. Madame Ife had looked at that dress for a long time. Then she looked at Christine for a longer time. "Who taught you?" she asked. "My hands," Christine said simply. That was the truth. From the age of 12, after her father had died of a stroke that nobody saw coming, Christine had taught herself to sew, thread by thread, seam by seam. She pulled her grief into fabric, and the fabric became something beautiful. It was the only kind of magic she knew. She lived in a 2-room apartment in Aguda, Lagos, with her mother Gloria, a soft round woman with kind eyes that had long ago learned the habit of looking away. The apartment smelled of onion soup and the particular sadness of women who have buried too many dreams. Christine's father had left them with nothing but love and memory. And love, as every Nigerian widow learns eventually, does not pay school fees. She had sewn her grief into fabric, and the fabric had become something beautiful. It was the only kind of magic she knew. But Christine refused the narrative that poverty was for her. Every morning before her mother woke, she was at the window with her little machine, stitching. Every evening after school, she was at the market studying what women wore, what they wished they could wear, what their bodies were asking for that fashion had not yet given them. She kept a notebook, a cheap exercise book with a blue cover, filled with designs, silhouettes and necklines, shoulder cuts and hemlines, fabrics and the modes they made. That notebook was more precious to her than anything she owned. And then came modeling. It began as an accident, the way most true things do. She had gone to a trade fair to display 4 of her pieces, small skirts and 2 blouses, set on wire hangers tied to a broom handle she had propped between 2 chairs. A photographer from Arise magazine had walked past, paused and reversed. He asked her to try one of the blouses because he would love to take pictures of her. She laughed and went to put it on. He had taken 17 photographs and 3 of them ended up in the magazine. After that, people started calling Christine's name in rooms she had not yet entered. She was not simply beautiful. Beautiful women were everywhere in Lagos, numerous, dazzling as stars. What Christine had was something rarer, presence. The camera did not capture Christine so much as confess to her. It told the truth about her in a way that ordinary eyes sometimes could not. In front of a lens, she became herself more completely than anywhere else. Every angle clean, every emotion precise, her body a language that spoke without apology. She had begun to dream about Milan, about Paris, about walking a runway the way water walks on a slope, because it is the only natural direction, because anything else would be a lie. She was 19 years old, and the world was a large and generous place. She did not know yet that it was also a place where men with small hearts built cages and called them love. His name was Raymond Adeyemi, and he arrived in their lives the way bad weather arrives, gradually, then all at once. Gloria had met him at a church program, 18 months after Christine's father died. He was a thick-necked man in his mid-40s with a strong look. He brought groceries the first time he visited. He brought more groceries the second time. By the third visit, he was calling Gloria, my wife, before anyone agreed to anything, and Gloria, who had been lonely for so long, fell for it. Christine watched all of this from a careful distance. She was polite, as her father had raised her to be. She served Raymond's tea and answered his questions and said, "Good evening, sir," when she passed him in the corridor. But there was something in her that had always been able to read rooms, read people, read the hidden text beneath the surface of things, the same instinct that made her a gifted designer. And what she read in Raymond made the hairs on the back of her neck rise slowly. It was the way he watched her. Not the way a stepfather watches a child, not protectively, not warmly, not with the awkward goodwill of a man trying to fit in a new family. He watched Christine the way a man watches something he has decided to take, calculating the right moment. He married Gloria in a small ceremony at the church, 6 months after they met. Christine wore a yellow dress she had sewn herself and stood beside her mother and tried to find somewhere inside her chest a feeling that resembled peace. She could not find it. Raymond moved in, and just 3 weeks after the wedding, he started. Christine had come home from the market late, hands full of fabric, humming a song her father used to sing. She had walked into her room, set down her bags, and turned around to find Raymond standing in the doorway, watching and giving a smile that had no warmth in it. "You look like your mother when she was young," he said, "but better." "Thank you, sir," Christine said carefully, and held the fabric in front of her like a shield. "I need to change now." "Of course," he said, and took a step into the room instead of out of it. What followed in the weeks and months after that first incident was a world that nobody in the outside world could see. Raymond was patient. He was cunning. He was the kind of predator who has learned that the hunt goes better when the prey doesn't yet know it is being hunted. He would appear at Christine's door when Gloria was at the market. He would find the reasons to be near her, helping her fix the sewing machine, bringing her tea she had not asked for, finding excuses to touch her hand, her shoulder, her face. Christine fought him with everything she had. She fought him with locked doors and sharp elbows and the cold fury of a young woman who knew exactly what was happening even when the adults around her pretended not to. 4 times he tried. 4 times she escaped. By luck, by wit, by the fierce burning intelligence that God had built into her bones. Each time she told her mother, she would say, "Christine, I know you don't like this man, but what can I do? Your father died and left me helpless. This man came for me. He takes care of this house. You don't understand what it is to be a woman alone. Mama, he's not coming for me because he likes me. He's coming for me because..." "Christine!" Gloria interrupted her. "Raymond is a man. Men have temptations. But he has not done anything to you. You are a beautiful girl, and men look at beautiful girls. That is not his fault, though." Christine stared at her mother for a long time. She looked at the woman who had held her during every nightmare, who had plaited her hair on Saturday mornings and sung Emmanuel songs in the kitchen on Sundays afternoons, who had told her since she was small that she was brilliant and valuable and made for great things, and she tried to understand how that same woman was now sitting in front of her and choosing blindness. The second time she told her mother, Gloria cried, which was almost worse than the anger Christine had expected. She cried and held Christine's hands and said, "My daughter, please be careful around him. Lock your door at night. But please don't destroy this family. I cannot start over again. I cannot." The third time came. Gloria said nothing. She just looked at Christine with eyes that were full of guilt and so empty of courage that Christine felt something inside her chest. The fourth time, Christine did not tell her mother. There was no point. The only person who could save Christine in their house was Christine, and she had always known it. She had simply been hoping she was wrong. Raymond was clever in the way that dangerous men are clever. Slowly, invisibly, with the patience of someone who knows he holds the longer cards. When Christine would not yield to him, when every attempt failed, and the risk of exposure grew, Raymond changed his strategy. He did not retreat, he redirected. He started bringing a man named Kenneth to the house. Kenneth was 32. From a Ghanaian family that had long settled in Lagos. He was not a bad-looking man, broad in the shoulder, neat in his dress, with the kind of manners that mother liked immediately. He ran a small transport business, 3 minibuses that went between Oshodi and Lekki. Not rich, but stable. Also, he presented himself. He came for dinner 3 times. He brought wine each time. He helped carry grocery bags. He asked Christine polite questions about her sewing and complimented her work. Christine was not fooled, but she was also not given the opportunity to refuse the direction things were moving. Raymond spoke to her mother. Gloria spoke to Christine. The conversation had the structure of consultation, but the substance of a verdict that had already been delivered. Kenneth is a good man, Gloria told her daughter one Sunday morning, not meeting her eyes. He likes you. His family is decent. He will take care of you. I don't need to be taken care of, Christine said. I'm taking care of myself. You are taking care of yourself by doing fashion that may come to nothing. Marriage is a foundation, Christine. It is security. I'm 19 years, Mama. Your grandmother was married at 17. I was married at 20. And look how well that turned out. Christine almost said, but she beat it back. Some words, once released, cannot be recalled. And she still loved her mother, even now. Even through everything, she loved her the way you love someone who is drowning and who keeps pulling you down, trying to stay afloat. She said instead, I want to be a designer. I want to model. I have plans, Mama. Real plans. I have people who believe in my work. Plans. Raymond had been sitting in the living room and had walked to the doorway, that particular smile on his face. Plans are fine for women who have the luxury of waiting, but this family cannot wait. Your mother needs stability. You need a husband. Kenneth is willing. That is not a small thing, no, Christine. A man willing to marry you is not a small thing. She had looked at Raymond in that moment, really looked at him directly, without the pretense of difference, and let him see in her eyes exactly what she knew about him, and exactly what she thought of him. He held her gaze for 3 seconds, then looked away. But the damage was already done. The machinery was moving, and Christine, at 19 years old, with no money of her own, no family beyond her mother, No external power to resist the weight of two adults and a culture that still, in certain rooms, in certain houses, decided the futures of women without consulting them. Christine lost that particular battle. She married Kenneth when she became 21, not because she loved him, not because she wanted to. She married him because the alternative, remaining in that house with Raymond, had begun to feel like a different kind of death. Slower, more intimate, and less forgiving. She married him not for love, but for escape. She did not yet know she was trading one prison for another, only one with better curtains. The wedding was small. Christine wore a dress she had made herself, white with gold trim, structured at the shoulders, flared at the hem, the kind of dress that made people say, "Who made this?" Gloria wept through the entire ceremony. Raymond smiled the whole way through. Christine did not cry at all. The first year of marriage was not terrible. This is important to say because it is how traps work. They moved into a 2-bedroom flat in Surulere, modest but clean, with a small balcony where Christine put a pot of basil and one of mint, the first small acts of possession in a space where she was trying to feel like home. Kenneth was not unkind in the beginning. He was attentive and quiet. He asked her about her work. He said he was proud of her. They had Sunday mornings that were almost peaceful when the light came through the curtains in long golden strips and the city had not yet woken up to its urgency. And Christine would sit at her sewing machine and think, Maybe this is enough. Maybe this is what love becomes when passion is absent. A quiet sort of agreement to build something together regardless. Then slowly, she began to notice the betting slips. The first one she found tucked into the pocket of his trousers when she was doing laundry. She set it on the kitchen counter and said nothing. She was not yet sure of what she was looking at. Not sure of the shape of the problem. The slip was for a football match prediction, 15,000 naira. The second time, 3 slips fell out of his jacket when she lifted it from the floor, 40,000 naira across 3 games. None of them had won. The third time, she sat down in their living room with a piece of paper and began to add up numbers. The numbers did not lie. In 4 months of marriage, Kenneth had gambled and lost nearly 500,000 naira. The money was gone. His boss repair fund, money his mother had given him for an emergency, and even her income from her last tailoring orders that she had foolishly left in the household account while she saved up for a new sewing machine. She confronted him carefully. She was not a woman who raised her voice without cause. She laid the paper on the table between them, pointed to the numbers and said, "Kenneth, we need to talk about this." He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I had a system. It was supposed to work, but it did not, and I don't know why. Every gambler says this. This time was different." Christine told him quietly, "But that is how gambling kills people. Not all at once, but in the small daily lie that the next time we beat the time it works." His face changed, filled with disgust and most of all, anger that Christine almost missed it. "Don't lecture me," he said. "I know my business. Your business is losing money that we don't have." She did not see the slap coming, because she never thought that a dream man would ever be one who resorts to domestic violence. But this wasn't her dream man. This was someone they chose for her to marry. The slap landed across her left cheek with a flat, terrible sound. Christine's head snapped sideways. Her elbow hit the edge of the table. The paper with the numbers floated to the floor. She sat very still for a long moment. hand pressed to her face, eyes fixed on the opposite wall, and tears rolling down her cheeks. It was a very hot and sounding slap. Kenneth left the room, and 20 minutes later, he came back with a bowl of warm water and a cloth, sat beside her, cleaned the small cut on her cheekbone where the edge of his wedding ring had caught her, and said, "I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. You pushed me. You know how to push me." He held her like a man holding something he is terrified of losing. It won't happen again. But it happened again and again and again. Christine did what women in the grip of such situations often do. She adapted. She reorganized the architecture over days around Kenneth's moods. She learned which topics were landmines. She learned to read the atmosphere of a room before she walked into it, to think before she spoke so as not to get it again. She was 21 years old and she was learning the survival language of a prisoner, and still she never gave up her dreams. She kept walking. This ultimately was what saved her, not the physical fact of escape, which came later at a tremendous cost, but the walking. She sued, she designed, she built her client base steadily, woman by woman, order by order, her reputation spreading in the quiet way of genuine quality through the mouths of satisfied people. She charged prices that were fair, but not cheap. She had standards she would not compromise. Her little workshop, a corner of the second bedroom, her sewing machine, and her table and her boxes of fabric was the one territory in that flat where she felt entirely herself, where Kenneth's moods and Raymond's shadow and her mother's silence could not reach her. Then the sponsors began to come. Now, remember that photographer who had taken pictures of Christine at the trade fair? Yes, that one. His name was Isaac. He works for a modeling agency and is also a talent scout, not just a photographer. And he had been pitching Christine since that day to the agency. And finally, they listened and decided to work with Christine. After going through a great length to get her contact, he reached out to her for business discussion. They met at a cafe in Victoria Island. Isaac was professional, soft-spoken, with a business card that had 2 international numbers on it and the name of an agency she had heard of. He showed her photographs of models he represented. He talked about casting calls, about portfolio shoots, about the kind of runway work that was beginning to take African models seriously in global markets. He said he had shown her photographs to a colleague in London. He said the colleague had been very interested. Christine listened to all of this with the still clear attention of someone who has learned not to trust easily, but who recognizes truth when it arrives. She asked precise questions. She wrote nothing down. She never forgot anything. And she looked at Isaac with those river dark eyes and decided carefully that he was legitimate. After that, other men came to find her, fabric brand representatives, a photographer who wanted her for a campaign, an event company that needed a model for a launch. Each time, these meetings happened in public professional places, cafes, agencies, offices. Each time, Christine conducted herself with a formality that left no ambiguity. She was a businesswoman discussing business. Kenneth did not see it that way. The first time he saw Christine speaking with Isaac outside their building, Isaac had dropped her home after a meeting. Kenneth had not said a word. He had gone inside, gone to the bedroom, and when Christine entered 20 minutes later, he had beaten her until she could not see straight. "Who is he?" he had said, over and over, each repetition punctuated. "Who is he to you? What do you think you are doing? You think you are a model? You think you are something? You are my wife. My wife. Do you understand what that means? She had understood in that moment exactly what it meant to him. It meant property. It meant silence. It meant the erasure of everything she had been before she signed the marriage certificate. She did not stop meeting with the sponsors. She became more careful about where she met them, how she arranged things. But she did not stop. She could not stop. The work was the rope that kept her tied to the person she actually was, and she held it with both hands, even as everything around her tried to make her let go. It was her 24th birthday. She had not planned to celebrate. She never planned to celebrate anymore until Isaac sent a message in the morning. Happy birthday. I have good news. Can we meet? And she had messaged back, yes, wearing a small private smile that she did not let Kenneth see. The good news was extraordinary. Studio Celeste, an international modeling and talent agency based in London with offices in Milan, New York and Accra, had seen her portfolio. They had seen 4 photographs, the 3 from Arise magazine and one that Isaac had shot himself, a simple natural light portrait in which Christine was wearing a dress she had designed, looking not at the camera but slightly past it, as though she could see something in the distance the rest of the world had not yet noticed. Studio Celeste wanted to meet her in person in London. Isaac handed her the email printout across the cafe table, and Christine read it twice, then a third time, her face entirely still, her hands not trembling at all, because she was a woman who had learned that you do not show the size of your hope in front of other people, in case hope turns out to be one more thing they take from you. This is real, Isaac said. He sounded very excited. Christine, this is real. This does not happen to most people. This happens to almost nobody. I know, she said, and folded the paper carefully and put it in her bag. She went home with happiness and joy in her heart, and maybe her dreams was finally coming true. But she made the mistake of telling her husband. When she got home, he asked where she was coming from, and she began to explain like a thief would explain when caught in the act. She knew, even as she was saying it, that she should not. She told him about Studio Celeste. She told him about London. She told him, because she was still capable, even then, of the foolishness of wanting to share her joy with the person she was supposed to share her life with. Kenneth read the email. His face changed through several expressions. Confusion, then calculation, then something harder and colder than both. You are not going to London, oh, he said. Kenneth, you're not going to London. You're not meeting with any model people in London. You are a wife. You're not a model. I don't know who put these ideas in your head, but this ends today. I'm a designer, Christine said. I'm a designer, and I may be a model. I was those things before I was your wife, and I'll be those things. A sounding slap again interrupted the statement. He hit her for almost 15 minutes. With no neighbor coming to intervene or anything. What Kenneth did to Christine on the night of her 24th birthday is the kind of thing that the language of civilized places struggles to describe. Because the language of civilized places was built partly on the assumption that such things do not happen in decent homes between married people. But they do. They happened that night, in that flat in Surulere, with the pot of mint still alive on the balcony, and a blue notebook open on the sewing table, and the email from Studio Celeste, crushed and damp on the floor. He hit her with his fist. He threw her against the wall. Once, twice, he grabbed the email and tore it into pieces, which should have been a small thing compared to the rest of it, but which broke something in Christine that went beyond the physical. He screamed at her. about the men she met, the dreams she had, the ambition he read as betrayal, the beauty that attracted other people's eyes, and which he experienced not as a gift, but as a humiliation. A constant advertisement of her value that reminded him of his own lack of it. He left her on the floor and went straight to the bed to sleep. Christine lay on the floor and looked at the ceiling and breathed. One breath at a time, carefully, because something on the left side of her chest screamed when she breathed too deeply. Christine got up and went to the bathroom. She washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror, looked at her swelling eye, the split lip, the bruise spreading across her cheekbone in the colors of a sunset nobody asked for, and she made a decision. She looked at the woman in the mirror and made a decision, not a plan. She had no plan yet, but a decision. She packed nothing. She had no passport. Kenneth held her documents. She had 1,500 naira in her pocket, which she kept there always, a habit she had formed in her mother's house, an emergency reserve. She had the address of Isaac's office, which she had memorized without meaning to, the way her mind memorized everything it considered important. She walked out of the flat at 2:47 in the morning. She did not close the door gently. She did not close it loudly. She simply let it fall shut behind her, the way a page falls at the end of a chapter, and she walked down the stairs into the night. The Okada rider who found her on Ikorodu Road at 4 a.m. later said he almost did not stop. A woman lying on the side of the road in Lagos at that hour. He had his own life to protect, his own reasons to keep moving. But something made him stop. He said, afterward, that it was a shoe, a yellow sandal that caught his eye. He did not know exactly what had happened to Christine between the moment she left the flat and the moment he found her. The police, when they came, would not know either. The Okada rider called emergency services and she was rushed to the hospital. At the hospital, a doctor and 2 nurses worked on her through the rest of the night. The doctor was a young woman named Dr. Priya Nahir, Indian Nigerian, 3rd year in general surgery, who had seen too much. Dr. Nahir looked at Christine and saw what she always saw in cases like these, the signature of systematic violence. Old bruises beneath new ones, the body's long record of war. She looked at Christine's hands while the nurses worked. The calluses from the sewing machine, the needle prick scars on the right index finger, and she thought she is someone who makes things. She worked harder, which was not a thing you were supposed to allow yourself to do, and she stabilized Christine by 7 a.m. By 8 a.m., word had reached Kenneth. He arrived at the hospital like a true husband who was worried, but he was more worried about what people will say or think who did this to her, so he was there in time to prevent that from happening. But Dr. Nahir looked at him for a long time from across the corridor before she went in to check on her patient. And Dr. Nahir had grown up watching her own mother navigate certain kind of men. She recognized the architecture of this particular kind of fear. She went back into the ward. She looked at Christine, who was sedated now, her face a map of damage that would take weeks to heal. And she did something that went slightly outside her official duties. She called Isaac. She had found his number on the phone in Christine's pocket, the only number in it under the name work, important, and she called it and said, I am Dr. Priya Nahir at Lagos General. There is a woman here named Christine, and I think she's in danger from her husband who is currently in the waiting area. If you know her, I need to know who else does. Isaac arrived within the hour. He came in through the side entrance that Dr. Nahir had specified, and he stood at Christine's bedside and looked at what had been done to her and went very still in the way that men go still when they are trying to contain something enormous. She can't be here when she wakes up. Dr. Nahir said, "You understand what I'm saying?" "I understand," Isaac said. What happened next was still a myth to Kenneth. The hospital never fully explained. They only told him there was an error in the records and she has been transferred to a specialist, which they gave Kenneth an address, but she was never there. She was never where he expected her to be. The trail simply ended just like that. The neighbor said Kenneth came home the next day, and the day after, and the day after that, and sat in the flat. He called her phone, but there was no response. He called Gloria. Gloria, who had only heard from Christine once or twice after their marriage, told Kenneth she did not know where her daughter was, and she began to worry. The city closed over Christine's disappearance the way Lagos Lagoon closes over a drop stone, just like that. No one saw her leave. No one could say where she had gone. The hospital had no answers. It was as if she vanished into thin air. She woke up in a room with white walls and thin curtains through which the light came gently, like an apology. For a long time, she lay still in serious pain, her ribs on the left side, her eyes still half shut, and finally, she opened her eyes. She's alive. Isaac came in. He was not alone. Beside him was a tall British Ghanaian woman with close-cropped natural hair and glasses and the precise, unhurried manner of somebody who runs things. Boma Ashley, West Africa Regional Director for Studio Celeste, who had flown in from Accra the previous evening because Isaac had called her in a state of barely controlled urgency. Boma sat in the chair beside the bed and looked at Christine for a long moment without speaking. Christine looked back at her, two women taking each other's measure over the ruins of the night. Isaac told me everything he knows. Boma said, "He has not told me much because he doesn't know much. I want to ask you directly if you would like our help. And I want you to understand that help means something specific in this situation. It means getting you somewhere safe, getting you healthy, and if you want it, only if you want it, giving you the thing we contacted you about 3 weeks ago, the opportunity we saw in your photographs." And Christine said, "What does it cost?" Boma smiled, a real one, with teeth. A woman who has been through what you have been through still asks what it costs. "That," she said, "is exactly why we want you." "What does it cost?" Christine repeated. "It costs everything you have left," Boma said, which in practical terms means time, commitment, trust, and a willingness to rebuild from absolute zero, which I suspect you already know how to do. "Yes," Christine said. They got her a travel document, arranged a medical transfer through a partner clinic for her to go receive proper treatment. She arrived in London on a Wednesday afternoon and she could feel the fresh air from the airport. She had nothing. She did not bring any clothes with her, just her weak body. But surprisingly, Isaac had gone to where the Okada rider found her to check for evidence, and he found her notebook because she never leaves home without it. So she wasn't really feeling empty anymore. The first 6 months were not romantic. She lived in a small room in the Studio Celeste residential house in Peckham, a converted Victorian terrace that housed 6 models and 2 junior designers at any given time, everyone in various stages of becoming. She was given access to a design studio in the basement of the Peckham house, and she went there every morning before breakfast and stayed there until night, and she worked. The studio creative director visited the Peckham house 2 months in and spent 4 hours in the basement studio and came out looking shaken in a good way. She called Boma and said, "Where has this woman been? She should have been here 10 years ago." She was detained, Boma said. Christine's first runway walk was at a showcase by Studio Celeste in East London 11 months after she arrived. She wore a dress she had designed herself, a black structured silk with gold geometric paneling at the shoulders that caught the light in a way that made the audience go quiet. She walked out with her head level and her spine straight and her face wearing the expression that the camera had always loved best. Not emptiness, as some people mistook it, but total presence, complete arrival. The face of a woman who has come from a long way and knows exactly where she is now. The video went online that night. By morning, it had 300,000 views. By the weekend, 1 million. By the end of the month, fashion journalists from 5 countries had written about Christine. She became, over the next 2 years, what Isaac had seen in that first photograph and what Boma had flown from Accra to confirm: a legitimate international model and designer. She worked for houses in Milan. She also designed a capsule collection for a Lagos-based luxury brand that sold out in 2 weeks. She was photographed for the cover of a fashion magazine that had been published continuously for 60 years and which do not put people on its cover unless it was absolutely certain about them. She was 28 years old when she decided it was time to go home. Not because she was finished with London, not because the work had run its own course, but because there are things that unfinished business does to a person over time, and it was time for Christine to face it and end it finally. She arrived in Lagos on a Saturday. Boma had come with her. She insisted on it. She had also, in the weeks before she left London, made several phone calls and sent several text messages and had several careful conversations that she did not discuss with anyone except Boma and a Lagos-based lawyer named Barrister Amara, who specialized in domestic violence cases and who had, upon reviewing what Christine told her, said in the quiet voice of a woman who has heard everything, "We have more than enough. Leave the rest to me." Christine had also, through a contact from Isaac, made contact with a young man named Peter, who was 30 years, with shoulders like a wardrobe and a reputation in the neighborhood of Surulere for being the person you called when something needed to be corrected in a direct and unmistaken fashion. Peter had a crew. They were street boys. They called themselves the Gangs of Surulere. Christine had spoken to Peter on the phone for 11 minutes. At the end of the call, he said, "We will be there." She found out about the new wife through a source she would not have expected: her mother. She reconciled with her mother and they were secretly speaking. "Christine, there is something you should know before you come back. Oh, Kenneth has remarried." Christine had been sitting at her design table in London, a pencil in her hand, and she had sat very still for a moment, then said, "When? Last year, a woman from Abeokuta. She has a son already. I hear he is not treating her." "I know," Christine interrupted. "It can never change, but don't worry. I will handle it, Mama." "Christine, I will handle it," she said again, gently. "I promise you." She went to the flat in Surulere on a Tuesday morning. With her was Boma and Barrister Amara, who came with some documents she had spent 3 weeks preparing, which contained, among other things, a formal charge of domestic violence assault, supported by the hospital records that Dr. Priya Nahir, who had kept meticulous notes, because she had always known this day would come for someone somewhere, had provided in full. And in one corner was Peter with 4 of his boys. She knocked on the door of the flat. The woman who opened it was small and tired looking, mid-20s, with a child of maybe 2 on her hip, and eyes that assessed Christine in the rapid experience way of women who have learned to be vigilant about who arrives at their door. She looked at Christine, Boma, and Hamara. "I'm looking for Kenneth Boateng," Christine said. "I'm his first wife." The woman's face shocked and surprised without saying a word. Kenneth came out of the bedroom in a wrapper and slippers, hair unsettled, morning still on his face. He saw Christine and went numb for a few minutes. Then, because Kenneth being Kenneth, an alpha male as he calls himself, asked her, "Where the hell have you been? Do you know what you did? Disappearing like that, embarrassing me, making people think Kenneth," Christine said. Her voice was even. "I need you to be quiet now." "You need me to be what now?" He stepped towards her. He was still a large man. He was still physically capable of doing what he had always done. And something in his body was reaching for exactly that. "You need me to be quiet? You came to my house after 4 years with these people and you tell me..." He raised his hands, but this time it wasn't Christmas for Kenneth. Christine signaled the guns, and before Kenneth could say jack, everywhere became blood to him. They pounced on him quickly and gave him a serious beating he never got in his life. The police arrived within the hour. Hamara had called them, and before anything, Kenneth was arrested. 2 officers took Kenneth from the living room of his flat in Surulere. He went in handcuffs, which he protested loudly with the bafflement of a man who has operated in impunity for so long that consequence has come to feel impossible. He looked at Christine as they led him past her. She looked back. She did not smirk. She did not gloat. She was simply there, and she even smiled with relief. The charges on Kenneth were enormous because aside Christine, he was also abusing his new wife. Our next stop was her mother's house. Raymond was harder because he was still in Gloria's house. Christine drove to Aguda on a Thursday morning with her Justice League, except for Peter this time around. "Christine," he said, "you came back. I always knew you would." "I did," she said. "I came back to finish something." "Ha!" He sat back. He crossed his legs. He was performing comfort the way he always performed everything. "We have all missed you, your mother especially. Whatever happened between us, Raymond," Christine said, "what you did to me in this house, what you tried to do to me, what you succeeded in making me afraid of, what you said to me, and how you touched me, and how you looked at me. I remember all of it, every single time. I remember what I was wearing. I remember what you said. I remember the day you finally understood that I would never yield to you, and you decided the next best thing was to put me in a marriage that would destroy me instead." Raymond stood up, trying to do what fathers would do to their daughters who is disrespecting them. But before he could reach her, the police stormed in and he was on handcuffs. "I know you love him, Mama," Christine said, still looking at her mother. "I know you were afraid. I know you were alone. And you were desperate, and you chose the only thing that felt like solid ground. I do not hate you for it. I haven't hated you for a long time." She paused. "But I needed you to choose me. Just once. Just one time to choose me. And you did not. And I have carried that." Gloria covered her mouth with both hands. The sound she made was not a word. It was just pain, finally given permission to be a sound. "I'm not coming back to hurt you, oh," Christine said, softer now. "I'm coming back so it can stop, all of it, for me, for you, even for you, if there is any part of you that still has a life ahead." 3 months after she returned to Lagos, Christine opened a studio. It was not a large studio, 2 rooms in a building in Ikoyi, with a cutting table and 4 sewing machines and 1 glass-fronted display case and a sign above the door that read simply Christine. She hired 3 young women straight out of fashion school, including Angela, Kenneth's new wife. She paid them properly, not the stipend dressed as opportunity that the industry too often offered young designers, but actual wages with actual hours and actual credit for their work. Gloria was moved into a flat of her own. Kenneth and Raymond were paraded to the court and found guilty of all offenses and were sentenced. So, my amazing friends, this is the end of this story. To every woman out there going through this is not a story to mock you, but to educate you, to push you to do what you are afraid to do. Speak up. It is only those who speak up that get justice and can achieve their dreams. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and until next time, I love you. Bye-bye.